My God is a God who saves. And the sovereign Lord comes escape from death. Martin Luther was not alone when he died. You can tell by the way that he talked. Although he wasn't talking to any person in the room, he prayed. He spoke to his Father in heaven. And he spoke that psalm passage that I just did. My God is a God who saves. And the sovereign Lord comes escape from death. For dying Luther, the only thing that remained is his relationship with the Lord. An aged king, after spending years, decades, caring for, providing for, and protecting his people, finally lay on his deathbed. And his son was with him, so he turned to him and he said, I'm about to go the way of all the earth. So be strong and walk in the way of the Lord. For dying King David, the only thing remaining that mattered was your relationship with the Lord. You remember Stephen? The first recorded martyr of the Christian church. He tried witnessing his faith to the religious leaders who had crucified Jesus. That seems like a bad idea, doesn't it?
Mom, look how big.
In their anger against Stephen, those religious leaders took him outside of town and stoned him, but there was one thing that Stephen had left. So he prayed, Father, receive my spirit. For dying Stephen, the only thing that remained was his relationship with the Lord. I've been at the deathbed of some loved ones before. There's no distractions when someone is dying. All the worries of life and the concerns of this world just fade away. As pointless and meaningless and idiotic as they always are. What you had planned to do in a year, or a month, or next week, suddenly doesn't matter anymore at all. When someone is dying, what matters and what doesn't matter, what lasts and what doesn't, it's quite clear. The purpose of this life is suddenly, thankfully, out. This is our time of grace, to come to know God and to trust in Him. Death brings an end to so much. Separation from everything, all the things of this world except this. Death cannot separate you from your relationship with God. When you die, your relationship with God, whether it's a good one or a bad one, is all that you will have left. And today Jesus teaches us, when you hear resurrection, think relationship. Death is not a laughing matter. But for the Sadducees, the resurrection was. They knew that Jesus had come to town. He was at the temple teaching and popular enough among the people that they decided they better go check it out. Hear it for themselves and make sure they knew what he was saying. They go to the teacher to poke fun at him and his teaching of the resurrection. See, Sadducees didn't believe in the resurrection of the dead, the resurrection to eternal life. They didn't believe in any afterlife. They thought that the point of religion, the point of believing in God was so you could be blessed in this life and blessed according to your behavior. They didn't believe in the resurrection. That's why they were so sad, you see. So they go to Jesus to challenge him. To give him this challenge, they pose this scenario. They say, okay, Jesus, so in the resurrection, let's say there's a man who gets married and then he dies childless, and his brother marries his widow, which was customary, right, as they pointed out, according to the law of Moses, which had been around for over 1,000 years. And then that brother who married the widow, he dies too. And so then the next brother marries her, and so on until she's married 7 brothers and doesn't have any children with any of them. So then in the resurrection, whose wife will she be? Huh? There's this ha-ha Got you now, Jesus. Stumped you, didn't we? See, it doesn't work. It can't work. It doesn't make any sense. The resurrection can't be real. Because she had 7 husbands during her life. And there is no good logical answer for whose wife she will be in the resurrection, in heaven. And you can almost, there's just like this gotcha, Jesus. And you can almost see the comics, can't you? Just the newspaper cartoons. You'd have all 7 brothers lined up at the pearly gates with the wife of all of them, the woman who married all 7 of them in her life. They're standing with them, and God's there, like scratching his head with this balloon cloud bubble of a question mark, and they're trying to figure out what to do now, whose wife she should be. And so it goes. Right? That's the joke. That's the challenge they've posed. And so it goes with the teaching of the resurrection in this world. So it goes with the teaching of the resurrection from the dead, because in our human experience, we don't have any evidence. We just have the Word of God. We just have promises. We just have faith. We just have a relationship. But apart from that, there is no proof. All that we can see is that someone breathes their last, and that's it. So from ancient Egypt on up to modern, unspiritual people, there's many who are more than comfortable just saying whatever they want to say about the afterlife. As if it's just some blank page, and you can put whatever you think would be nice up there.
Say hi to him. Did you say hi to him?
But Jesus is the Word made flesh. Jesus is the truth who can reveal what human experience cannot. Jesus fills up that page. There's no room left for any of my ideas. Which is good, because my heaven, my eternity is not based on my relationship with this world, but on my relationship with Him. And so His words alone, I frame and hang on the walls of my heart and mind, so that when I have my one-time experience with death, His words will be with me, and I will not be afraid.
5, 6, 7, 8, 9.
These are His words for us today. The people of this age marry and are given in marriage. So that there's a way that things work in this life. People get married, have kids, and they die, but the next life is different. Those who are considered worthy of taking part in the age to come and in the resurrection from the dead will neither marry nor be given in marriage. They can no longer die. For that, in that way, they are like the angels. They are God's children, since they are children of the resurrection. People aren't married in heaven. There's the gist of Jesus' answer to these Sadducees. If your spouse is in heaven, when you are with them again, you are going to love them. You're going to love each other more than you ever did in this life. And everyone else who's there, you're going to love them just as much. And they are going to love you that much too. You're not going to be married. Marriage and family is God's design for structure in this life, but there's no reproduction in heaven. There's no loneliness in heaven. There's no need for marriage. And your heaven, your eternity is based on a relationship not with your spouse, but with your Savior. That relationship that lasts forever. And it strikes me that as Jesus talks about the life to come, He teaches about the resurrection, the difference of the life of the age to come. He's only talking about God's children in heaven. He doesn't mention hell or eternal death, because that's not what He's been asked about. He was asked about the resurrection. And He's able to give some information that they weren't understanding. Eternal death, that's not living. He's talking only about God's children in heaven. Because if that's not your life, then that's not real resurrection. That's not what it means to be truly alive. The definition of hell and eternal death is no connection, no relationship with God. Cut off from Him and any good thing that comes from Him. Separation from God eternally, that's it. But the resurrection Jesus mentions here is for the children of God, those who have a relationship with Him. True life, true resurrection comes to those who are considered worthy of life from the dead. Okay, considered, who does this considering? Who's going to be the one that gets to consider this? Who does the considering? God does. Duh. If there is a next life, it's not based on science. You can't prove it. Most Americans believe there is a next life. But most Americans don't base that on Jesus. They seem to want proof for everything, except this nice little thought that I'll hold on to, that there's a heaven. There's a connection to that. It's a relationship with the one who gets you there, the one who has made you who you are and promised you that life to come. So these are people considered by God to be worthy. And that's a relationship, right? To be considered anything by someone, they need to know you. For God to consider you worthy, you need to have a relationship. God is involved in this resurrection. So the question is, does God consider me worthy? And I love that question. Certainly not because I'm full of myself and think that I deserve any of these good things that God has to offer in regards of eternal life. Because that's not the case. I love this question because it is very different from the question, am I worthy? You and I are born, just like Owen, sinful. Born dead to anything that pleases God. And every new hour of our life provides more evidence of that fact. Wait until he can express himself, right? Just as we all prove every day. You and I must confess that we are lost and unworthy, that he still considers me worthy. How can that be? Jesus. God made room in his house for the unworthy through Jesus. Jesus was the worthy son in my place. With him, God was well pleased. The punishment he bore on the cross, he bore for the sin and guilt that made me an unworthy child. And God raised him from the dead with the promise that all who trust in Jesus are considered God's worthy children too. Adopted, readopted children, yes, but true children of his household nonetheless, and therefore children of the resurrection. Now, I'm a millennial. That's what generation I'm a part of, right? So I was born in the 80s, but mostly like a child of the 90s. That was my childhood. A child of the 90s is just, all it means is there's a group of people who were born around the same time I was, and we have a connection because of it. And here Jesus says that as children of God, we are children of the resurrection. That you are connected to the resurrection and born, or connected, have a connection with those who were born in that same way, born at that same time that you are. A connection to eternal life that God promised. So just as I can say, it's a fact that I lived in the 90s and can name the Power Rangers, had an NSYNC CD, know the beginning songs, The Full House, and French Prince of Bel-Air, and that I lived in that decade. So also you can say, with faith's confidence, it's a fact. I am a child of the resurrection. That's what I'm connected to. Child of the resurrection. And I will be raised to life as Jesus was. I will be like the angels, not that I'm going to have wings. But I'm not going to be married, and I'm not going to sin, and I'm not going to die. God will wipe every tear from my eyes, no more death or mourning or crying or pain. Because that's the life that God promises for his children, for Owen, for those who have a relationship with him, for those who miss every day, who died in faith. Promise that we are children of the resurrection. Child of the resurrection. God's power to raise the dead, which he proved on Easter morning. God's power to raise the dead is God's power to raise you when you die. God will raise you imperishable. Your relationship with Him will last forever. Take that truth to your deathbed, because you are not alone there with death. God is with His child and will connect you to the resurrection He promised for Jesus' sake. When you hear resurrection, think relationship. The Sadducees considered only the first 5 books of the Bible to be authoritative, credible source of God's Word. The first 5 books that were written through Moses. So Jesus prudently and lovingly meets them where they are and addresses them with what they have in common, addresses them based on what they agree about, talks to them about Moses. Right? He mentions the story of Moses to show the relationship between God and His people. And it says even Moses showed that the dead rise. For he calls the Lord the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, the God of Jacob. He's not the God of the dead, but of the living. For to Him all are alive. So when God called Moses in the burning bush, it was a miracle. The bush was on fire, but it didn't burn. Jesus' point here is that what God said there also was a miracle. God said, even though Abraham and Isaac and Jacob had long ago been dead, right, died hundreds of years before, He still was their God because He still was living with them. He said, I am the God of Abraham, I am the God of Isaac, I am the God of Jacob. And when you're talking about someone who is dead, what you would expect God to say is, I was during their life the God of Abraham, I was the God of Isaac, I was the God of Jacob, but He says, I am. That's what Jesus points to through the resurrection for these Sadducees that reject everything else. God said, I am the God of Abraham, I am the God of Isaac, I am the God of Jacob, I am the God of your mother, your father, your daughter, your son, friend, or whoever else it is. For you, who died long ago in faith, who died with a relationship with God, a relationship that continues, that still exists, a relationship that lasts forever. When God spoke those words to Moses, at the same time, He could look right into the resurrected eyes of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. To God. They were alive and in His presence. That's the resurrection. That's heaven. An eternal relationship with God, the one you have now. That lasts forever. If your relationship with God now is a good one, a relationship of loving God, then you will love God eternally. But if your relationship with God now is a bad one, a relationship that wants nothing to do with God, anything that's said about God or by God, then you will have nothing to do with God for eternity. There are plenty of beautiful pictures of heaven given to us in the Bible. Some of them we looked at today. But heaven, it's certainly pictured as perfect paradise, but don't be mistaken, don't be naive, and realize that heaven is certainly far more than just some glorified retirement destination. The best part of heaven is your relationship with God. It's not where you are or what you're doing, it's who you're with. The same is true of this life. Let God teach you that as you look forward to what's coming. Being with God, unseparated. And that's what is true of those you miss today, and that is what it will be true of you too. The God you praise and worship and thank for so many blessings in your life is the God who shares life with His children. Take heart that He is ever the God of the living, God with His saints forever. It doesn't get any better than that. When you hear resurrection, think relationship, a relationship with God that will never end. Death may take you away from this life, but nothing, not even death, can take away your relationship with Him. Okay? God grant it. Amen. May the the love of God, which surpasses our understanding, continue to guard our hearts and minds through faith in Christ Jesus until life and relationship everlasting. Amen.